Don't cry, sir. You can borrow my mom tonight. The words landed softly, but they struck harder than any blow he had ever taken. He stood in the hospital corridor as if time had stopped for him alone. Christmas lights blinked above vending machines that hummed without care. Nurses moved fast. Families whispered. And a man whose name moved markets and shaped cities stood there with his hands shaking. Eyes wet and shoulders heavy with a pain no money could touch. Everyone knew his face. No one expected to see it like this. Julian Crow, Billionaire CEO, the man who never missed a meeting, never raised his voice, never showed weakness, was breaking in silence on Christmas Eve. People passed him and pretended not to look. Some recognized him and slowed, unsure. Others felt the weight of his sadness without knowing who he was. The rules of the place were clear. No loitering. No blocking the hall. Security watched him from a distance, waiting for him to move along. He didn't. The nurse had just told him the truth, with a gentle voice and tired eyes. The operation could not be done tonight. The team was short. The storm had grounded flights. Time once again had decided against him. Julian pressed his back against the cold wall. His breath came shallow. He stared at the floor, at a small red ribbon someone had dropped. And the memory hit him, so hard his knees nearly gave way. That was when the girl stepped forward. She couldn't have been older than 6. Her coat was too big, the sleeves folded twice. Her shoes were worn, but clean. Her hair was tied with care, though a few strands had escaped and framed her face. She held a paper cup of hot chocolate in both hands, as if it was precious. She looked up at him with eyes that held no fear. Don't cry, sir. You can borrow my mom tonight. Her voice was soft, honest, certain. Julian looked at her, stunned. For a moment, he forgot where he was. He forgot who he was. He only saw a child offering comfort the only way she knew how. Behind her stood a woman in a nurse's uniform. Tired eyes. Straight posture. A quiet strength that came from years of putting others first. She reached for the girl, embarrassed, ready to pull her back. But Julian shook his head slowly. It's okay, he said, his voice barely there. The girl smiled, relieved. She turned and pointed down the hall. My mom makes everything better, she said. Even when people are scared, the nurse met Julian's eyes. In them, he saw no pity. Only understanding. Her name was Mara. She had worked double shifts all week. She had lost count of how many holidays she had spent under these lights instead of at home. She had learned to smile without promising miracles. Julian felt something crack open inside him. Long before he was a CEO, long before the suits and the headlines, Julian had been someone else. He remembered the smell of dust and oil, the heat of metal, the weight of a uniform soaked with sweat and fear. He remembered nights when silence was louder than explosions. He remembered holding a friend's hand as life slipped away, promising to remember him when the world moved on. He had come home with scars no one could see. He had buried himself in work because it was easier than remembering, easier than feeling, easier than admitting that some losses never heal. Tonight, the past had caught up. His younger brother lay in a room at the end of the hall, hooked to machines that blinked and breathed for him. The same brother who had believed in Julian when no one else did. The same brother who had waited all year for this Christmas. Julian had tried to buy time. He had tried to move systems with calls and favors. But there were limits even for him, and now a child had offered him her mother, as if love could be shared like a blanket. Around them, the quiet grew heavier. Security stepped closer. A supervisor whispered about protocol. Other families watched, unsure why this man mattered, only sensing that something important was happening. Julian straightened slowly. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. He looked at the nurse again. Thank you, he said. For everything you do. Mara nodded once. She didn't say it wasn't necessary. She didn't say it was her job. She simply accepted the gratitude and stood her ground. The girl held out the cup of hot chocolate. For you, Sir Julian took it carefully, as if it might break. The warmth seeped into his palms. He took a small sip. It tasted like sugar and comfort and home. In that moment, the tension shifted. The supervisor approached, voice tight, ready to enforce rules. "This area is for patients' families only," she began. Julian met her eyes. Calm, steady, silent. "I am family," he said. No anger. No demand. Just truth. The supervisor hesitated. Something in his tone made her stop. She nodded and stepped back. Minutes passed. Then more. Doctor arrived, breathless, coat still on. He looked at Julian, surprised, then respectful. He leaned in and spoke quietly. "A team just landed. The storm cleared faster than expected. We can prep the room." Julian closed his eyes around them. The hallway seemed to exhale. The girl clapped once before remembering where she was and covering her mouth. Mara smiled despite herself. Julian crouched down in front of the child. "Thank you," he said. "You helped more than you know." The girl shrugged as if it was obvious. "My mom says everyone needs help sometimes." As the doors to the operating room opened, Julian stood taller than he had all night. He didn't announce who he was. He didn't call attention to his power. He simply placed a hand on his brother's door and waited. Hours later, dawn began to creep through the windows. The lights outside dimmed as Christmas. Morning arrived quietly. The doctor returned with tired eyes and a gentle smile. "He's stable. It was close, but he's going to make it." Julian let out a breath he felt he'd been holding for years. He turned to find the girl and her mother. But they were gone. Their shift was over. Another haul, another need had called them away. Later that day, no press release went out. No photos were shared, but things began to change. The hospital received funding it had been waiting on for years. Staffing doubled. Equipment arrived without ceremony. Policies softened, allowing compassion to lead when rules fell short. Mara received a letter with no return address. Inside was a simple note and a scholarship fund in her daughter's name. The note read, in careful handwriting, "Silent strength changes everything." Julian returned to his life. He was not the same. He visited hospitals without cameras. He listened more. He spoke less. When asked once why he funded a new wing for families, he said only this: "Power means nothing if it can't sit quietly with pain on Christmas Eve the next year." Julian walked the same corridor. This time, he carried a small gift bag. He found the girl by the vending machines, taller now, sleeves fitting better. She looked up and smiled. "Did my mom help you last year?" she asked. Julian knelt and handed her the bag. "She reminded me how to be human," he said. The girl nodded, satisfied. As Julian walked away, people didn't recognize him. They didn't need to. Some heroes don't wear uniforms anymore. Some never raise their voice. Some wait for a child to remind them what matters. And sometimes, the smallest kindness becomes the turning point for a life, a system, a world. If this story moved you, share where you're watching from. Tell us what silent strength means to you. And subscribe for more stories that honor the quiet heroes among us.